Hey, all you fantasy football managers, Jacob Camenker from USA Today Sports to break down the Week 13 waiver wire. Now, a lot of you gearing up for the fantasy football playoffs, and some of you are still, playing to get in here. So we'll give you some options to replace some of those injured players like Baker Mayfield and Alvin Kamara, but we don't know if they're going to play moving forward. We'll start with the guy who's probably the best quarterback option out there to replace Mayfield if he has to miss time. That'd be CJ Stroud from the Texans. Stroud has missed the last few games with a concussion, which has prompted a lot of fantasy managers to cut him, but before getting hurt against the Broncos, Stroud was averaging 256 passing yards per game and 2.3 touchdowns over a 4-game span. Houston's offense appears to be getting better with some of their rookie receivers like Jaden Higgins stepping up with Stroud out and Davis Mills in the lineup. So I like the possibility of Stroud coming back in, being in a rhythm, and just sort of becoming a good streaming option moving forward. Now, if you're looking for another injury replacement, Devin Neal from the New Orleans Saints is probably the running back you're going to want to get. Alvin Kamara exited last Sunday's game with a knee injury, and the Saints have already lost backup running back Andrei Miller for the season, so that kind of leaves Devin Neal as the last man standing for that offense. Now, he's probably going to emerge as the workhorse because of that, and he's a good pass catcher out of the backfield, as he showed, catching 5 balls for 43 yards last week against the Falcons. So he can do a little bit of everything and be a PPR monster potentially if Kamara is out long term. Now, another option from the Saints, if you want to get a little crazy, is to go with tight end Taysom Hill. Now, Hill, in wake of Kamara's injury, actually led the team in carries with 10. Now, he only turned those into 17 yards, so he's not going to be the same type of explosive runner we've seen in the past as he recovers from that knee injury that he had last year. But he's probably going to get some opportunities at the goal line in conjunction with Neal, and that can make him a touchdown-dependent threat at the tight end position, which, as we all know, is a fantasy wasteland at times. Another pass-catching option you can consider is Andrei Iosivas from the Bengals. Iosivas saw increased action in Week 12 when Jamar Chase was suspended, and while a lot of people assumed he'd just go back to, being their team's wide receiver 3, T. Higgins is dealing with a concussion and may not be able to play on Thanksgiving. So that's going to give Iosivas a chance to work as the number 2 receiver across from Jamar Chase. And hey, Joe Burrow might be back this week, and even if not, Iosivas should still see a high volume of targets that will make him a potential wide receiver 3 or flex option. And finally, if you're looking for one more player at tight end to keep an eye on, consider Brenton Strange from the Jaguars. He returned to action for the first time since Week 5 against the Cardinals, and he totaled 93 receiving yards on 5 catches. And excluding the game in which he was hurt, he's averaging 55 yards per game this season on 4.8 catches. So, you may not have a super high ceiling because he hasn't gotten into the end zone yet, but he's going to have a pretty high floor as a guy who consistently gets targets from Trevor Lawrence. And hey, if those gates do open and he does get a couple touchdowns down the stretch, he could end up being a top 10 fantasy tight end the rest of the way.